The attention to detail in these things is really phenomenal. Like it's one of those things I think you've got to see it in person to get it, but like really phenomenal like machine work on the slides between, you know, and it's not that other people don't make good Gucci Glocks, but I'll straight up tell you that's my favorite version of a Gucci Glock that is currently made. Extreme attention to detail, and I think one of the little things I appreciate too, very subtle branding. Like when you look at that side of the gun, there is one logo, and it is a teeny tiny FI for Fowler Industries on that side of the gun. And then you jump over to that side of the gun, you've got the same thing, and then a little FI right there. It's like, I think the best way I can describe it, it's like someone who, for lack of a better way to put it, has some class who's making Gucci Glocks versus like, let's just make this thing an absolute branding fucking logos everywhere and obnoxious colors and all this kind of stuff. I feel like Fowler is one of the few companies that actually got it right. Cool. All right, everyone, that is the Fowler Industries Mark II Glock 17. It is part of the Gucci Glock market. I've previously made statements to say that the Gucci Glock market is dead. That, of course, is me exaggerating. It is not dead. It's fine, but it is diminished. If you went back a handful of years, everyone was, you know, dropping $2,500 on Glocks, frequently around tax season, and that's kind of what you did. And since then, it seems like Glock has caught on to a lot of the modifications that people were doing, and they've started to up their game. Nonetheless, let's break this down and take a look at some of the features. All right, so let's talk first about the frame. Really good. I mean, look, the whole thing is very well thought out, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm liking on the frame. So let's start from the magwell area, and we'll just keep working through. So we've got a little plug here that is on the magwell, just instead of that little stupid notch that's on Glocks where you know, flub your reload. It would appear to me that there is a bit, unless that's how Glocks are coming now, and I'm just, you know, a little behind on Glock trends. It seems like there's a bit of a minimalist magwell that is not attached to the gun. There's nothing attached to the gun, but it would seem like Fowler is doing a little bit of a minimalist magwell there. The stippling. So I'm a real, I get very picky on stippling because most people's stipple jobs I hate. I either think it looks super tacky, which is most of where I differ with a lot of the stipples that I see. It either looks super tacky or it's too aggressive, or it's just like I'm never gonna wanna carry that. Like I remember when I got my Agency 19, this was, I don't know, 5 years ago, probably I got that gun. It was super aggressive. Now it's perfect because I've had it for 5 years, but then it was super aggressive. I literally remember carrying that thing appendix and like my stomach was bleeding. Like it was actually rubbing my stomach raw. My belly or six pack, whatever, you know, you guys can debate which one I likely have. Let's just say six pack. So my six pack is actually the thing that smoothed out that stipple. So that should give you a pretty good indication of that. Other things going on here. So we've got a double trigger undercut. So that is undercut number 1, which is nice and smooth. This is undercut number 2 underneath the trigger guard. That way, that's where your support, reaction hand, whatever you want to call it, that's where your hand would find its home. The mag release is scalloped, which is a super underutilized word in life. Scalloped. One, I like scallops. Two, to scallop something is just, I don't know, it's a cool word. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Let's talk about the trigger. The trigger is, I go back and forth a bit on the trigger. So when Fowler first came out with these Glocks, there was a stock Glock trigger shoe in it. The trigger had been highly worked on, so it looked like a factory trigger on that frame and slide. So visually, I think for a lot, and I had one of those early Glocks. Mine was a 19, was a Mark I, but I actually really liked them. I don't so much have an issue with a stock Glock trigger shoe. It's more just a stock Glock trigger that I'm not necessarily in love with. And especially 5 years back, they were really shitty. They're a little bit better now. But since then, came out with their actual Fowler trigger, which is good. Let's give you a sense. So there's your take up. We hit a little wall. And that's our reset. So again, that's our bit of mush there. Then we hit that wall, a little bit of mush beyond the wall, and then it breaks. My take on the trigger would be good, not the best. So it's a good trigger. I felt better. I think if you go to some of the early edition Salients, some of the early agencies, to me, those are still probably my favorite custom Glock triggers that I felt. This is good. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give you a 7, between 7 and 8, you know? So it's like not the best, solid though. You know, I don't think you're gonna get it and be like, well, I need to replace the trigger. Definitely not that. Let's break down a little bit of the slide. Okay, let's talk about the slide. So the slide is a really, really great design. So there's 2 slide options on Fowler Glocks. There's Mark 1, there's Mark 2. This is a Mark 2, which is gonna be more oriented at competition and speed. So the speed thing to me is always a little funny. You'll see this one's got 1, 2, 3 window cuts, and the window cuts help the slide track faster. I always bring up the point, and I'm sure someone maybe a lot smarter and faster than me will prove me wrong, but are you really out shooting a stock Glock slide? You know what I mean? Like, are you faster than the Glock? I highly doubt it, fella. But anyway, this will help track the, I guess the only argument is because the slide can track faster, that front sight can find its home faster. Maybe that's the more so the argument, but the slide tracking faster. To me, outside of the front sight, finding its home a little faster is a little bit of a goofy argument. But the slide design itself, I love. So the rear serrations, the front serrations are different. The Mark II, obviously, so we've got window cuts. The Mark I is more oriented at carry. There's no window cuts, which is personally what I like more. So like there's serrations all here, here, here. That's the one. That's the one that I like. But the front serrations, they're good. They're different. You know, they're different than a lot of the serrations that are out there, just a different design. The rear have a nice bite to them. We've got an RMR or an optic cut. I assume most people probably doing RMRs, but we've got an optic plate and we've got good rear sights. We've got a nice hook on these. So if you're racking your slide off of, you know, whatever it is, you'll find some good traction on that rear sight. This particular front sight, because again, just a loaner gun, it's not a fiber or tritium or anything, it's just a black front sight. So, and yet my draw times with this not having a bright fiber optic are really no different than they are with anything else. So, you know, for people who think you need that stuff, I'm sure it helps and that's your preference, but honestly, you know, my splits and everything are about the same with this as they are with anything else. Let's talk about the barrel. So the barrel, and this is unique to Fowler. Again, there's so many people in the Glock space now that maybe some other companies are doing this, but I am not aware of them. So the barrel is a Barstow hand fit, match fit barrel, okay? And many companies will tell you, hey, we have, pay attention to the verbiage, match grade barrel in our Glocks. That has nothing to do with a hand fit barrel. That is fancy marketing terms. Match grade is different than match fit. Match fit, there's always a lockup or a bit of slop in Glock barrels where if you push down on the Glock barrel, you'll feel that barrel move around, right? That's part of the, you know, tolerances being a little loose, kind of like AK, so they, you know, just eat pretty much anything. You will notice on this, and I'm gonna do this right by the microphone so you guys can hear it. There's nothing. There's no play inside of that barrel. That's because these barrels are actually oversized and then hand fit to the gun. What that leads to is a more accurate Glock. Do you need this Glock to be more accurate than a factory Glock? You guys can have that debate. I'm not really here to comment on that one way or another. And then we've got a nice, well, actually there is a kind of a minimal crown that's on the end of that barrel. But Hand fit Barstow barrels, that is completely unique to Fowler. You know, Salient used to hand fit their barrels, not doing that anymore. I think agencies always had drop-in match grade barrels, but this really is unique to Fowler. Retail price on these bad boys, 2,300 bucks. I get it. They're not cheap, but hey, look, you know, the funny thing is, when you look at the peak of the Glock market, they were up to like 26. You know, I don't know specifically if Fowlers were at 26, but I mean, like, that was like top tier Glocks. You were dropping 2,600 bucks on these things. And like I said, the market has cooled down a little bit, but the inevitable question that will be asked is, look, are these things worth, I think there's two independent questions. I think it's, are these worth 2,300 bucks? And do they make that big of a difference over a factory Glock? So let's start with, do all the mods make that much of a difference? I don't know. It's tough. It's tough, okay? Because you go, look, Glock has caught up a bit. Now we've got front serrations on the Gen 5s. The sights still aren't great, but you know, the triggers are a bit better. There's like a little kind of minimalist mag well that's on there. So, you know, they've done some stuff to go, hey, look, instead of outsourcing all this work, why don't we do some of it ourselves, and people can just buy Glocks that are a little bit more ready to go out of the box. So I don't know, does it make all of it a difference? I think you almost have to lump, does it make a difference, and is it worth 2,300 bucks? To me, it's the same answer to both. Does this shoot better than a factory Glock? Yes, of course. Is it going to be more accurate? Yes, of course, because we've got a barrel that has a tight tolerance. Does it have better sights? Yes, of course, and trigger. And by the way, like the finger grooves, you can take your pick. Do you want these removed or do you want them recontoured? These are obviously recontoured because they're still on the gun. And frankly, they work quite nicely. Like, I can't really explain it, but my hand finds a more suitable home than it does on standard Glock grooves. So all this kind of stuff, yes, it does make a difference. Does it make $2,300 worth of difference? I don't know that I can answer that for you. I think the best answer that I can give you is, look, all of us, if we're being honest, going back 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when everyone was buying this kind of stuff, is buy it because you want it. I mean, seriously, don't buy it thinking it's going to make you a better shooter. Buy it because you go, dude, I just like it. I think the design is really cool, and I like the stipple and the trigger, and all these things they add a certain amount of monetary value to me, but they add an additional amount of emotional value to me, because I look at it and I go, oof, I like that. Like, I like that. Like, that gun is sexy. And I don't think anyone has ever picked up a factory Glock and been like, man, that is pure sex. Like, and if you do, you definitely like ugly chicks if you're picking up stock Glocks and complimenting them, okay? But you look at this and you're like, God, that is just pure sex, you know? So I'm left with the same opinion that I had the day that I received this. When I received this, I thought, oof, I like it. And to be perfectly honest, it made me fall in love with Glocks a little bit again. I was like, God, I love it. Like, I mean, I really like it. I would prefer personally like a Mark I design just because it's more in line with my taste, but I handled this, I've shot it about 3 different days now, and each time I thought, man, I love it. I dig it. Buy it if you like it. Don't buy it thinking it's going to take you from being a shitty shooter to a great shooter. That is called flight time, right? That is called ammo and training, and that's how you get better as a shooter. This can help. It's not going to fix your deficiencies, but if you like it, fuck it, dude. Buy it. You just got 1,200 bucks, or at least probably a lot of people just got 1,200 bucks, or 3,400, depending on the size of your offspring. Hey, you know, what you do with stimulus funds, that's up to you. But I do dig it. I'm quite fond of it. And just as a reminder to everyone, help control the pet population, right? Have your pets spayed or neutered, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.